The stars looked cold and distant in the dark space around the Zephyrian patrol ship. Captain Vexithera stood on the bridge, her blue skin gleaming under the soft lights. Her forearms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. She had been hunting pirates in this sector for 3 months, and today felt like any other boring day. "Captain," called her second officer, a tall creature with silver scales. "We have something strange on our sensors." Vexithera turned her large eyes toward the main screen. A small ship drifted in space, barely moving. It looked old and crude, nothing like the sleek vessels of the Zephyrian Empire. The ship was maybe 50 meters long, with strange markings on its hull. "What kind of ship is that?" she asked. "Unknown design, Captain. The computer says it might be from one of the primitive species on the edge of our territory." Vexithera smiled, showing her sharp teeth. The Zephyrian Empire ruled over 12 different alien species across thousands of star systems. They were the strongest force in the galaxy, and everyone knew it. Sometimes they found small ships from backward planets, usually carrying criminals or rebels. "Any life signs?" she asked. "Yes, Captain, just one. Very weak signals. Bring it aboard. Let's see what kind of primitive we caught today." The Zephyrian ship was massive compared to the small vessel. Its tractor beam pulled the strange ship into the cargo bay like a toy. Vexithera walked down to meet whatever creature they had found. She brought 6 guards with her, all carrying energy weapons. The cargo bay was filled with the smell of strange metals and chemicals from the alien ship. The airlock opened with a hiss and white steam poured out. Through the mist walked a figure that made Vexithera stop and stare. It was an old human male. His hair was silver white and deep lines marked his face. He wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations. His skin was pale and his hands looked weak, but his eyes were sharp and clear as he looked around the cargo bay. "Well, well," Vexithera said in the common galactic language. "What do we have here?" The human looked at her calmly. "My name is Marcus Chen. I was traveling through this area when my ship had problems." Vexithera laughed. "A human? How interesting. We don't see many of your kind out here." She walked in a circle around Marcus, studying him like he was some kind of animal. "Your species is so young, so primitive. What are you doing so far from your little corner of space?" Marcus said nothing. He just stood straight, his hands behind his back. "How old are you, human?" Vexithera asked. 78 standard years, Marcus replied. This made all the aliens laugh. In Zephyrian society, 78 was barely adult. Most of them lived for over 300 years. To them, Marcus looked like a child trying to play with adult things. "Ancient for a human," Vexithera said with amusement. "Your species burns out so quickly. No wonder you never amount to anything important." She ordered her guards to search Marcus and his ship. They found no weapons, no valuable cargo, nothing dangerous. Just personal items, some food, and basic equipment. The ship itself was old but well-maintained, with technology that seemed crude by Zephyrian standards. "Captain," one of the guards reported, "the ship has been traveling for several months. Long-range sensors, communications equipment, and star charts. Looks like he was exploring." Exploring. Vexithera found this very funny. This old human thinks he's an explorer. How cute. She decided to take Marcus to the capital world. The High Council would enjoy seeing this primitive creature. It had been a long time since they had such an interesting specimen to study. Plus, it might be useful to learn more about the human species. The journey to Zephyros Prime took 5 days. During this time, Marcus was kept in comfortable quarters but watched carefully. The Zephyrians gave him food and water, but treated him more like a pet than a prisoner. Guards would come to stare at him and ask simple questions about human life. Marcus answered their questions politely, but briefly. He seemed calm and unafraid, which surprised some of the crew. Most primitive species became scared or angry when captured by the Empire, but this old human just sat quietly, sometimes reading from a small device, sometimes looking out the window at the stars. "He's probably too old to understand what's happening," one guard said to another. "These short-lived species don't develop much intelligence." Marcus heard these comments but showed no reaction. He ate his meals, slept normally, and waited patiently for whatever would come next. On the 4th day, Vexithera visited him personally. She wanted to understand why he seemed so calm. "Aren't you afraid, human?" she asked. "You're a prisoner of the most powerful empire in the galaxy." Marcus looked up from his reading. "Should I be afraid?" "Most creatures would be terrified. They would beg for mercy or try to escape." "Would that help me?" Marcus asked simply. Vexithera was confused by this response. "No, probably not. Then why waste energy on fear? This answer bothered Vexithara more than she expected. She had captured many different species over the years. They all reacted the same way, with fear, anger, or desperation. But this old human seemed to accept his situation without emotion, like he was just waiting for something. "What were you really doing in that sector?" she demanded. "I told you." "My ship had problems, and that's not what I mean." "Why were you out there at all? Humans rarely travel far from their home systems." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Sometimes it's good to see new places." Vexithara left feeling frustrated. The human wasn't lying, but she sensed he wasn't telling the whole truth either. There was something about him that didn't fit with what she knew about his species. On the 5th day, they reached Zephyros Prime. The capital world was a sight that impressed visitors from across the galaxy. Massive cities stretched across the continents, and space stations orbited like artificial moons. Ships from dozens of different species filled the traffic lanes around the planet. Marcus watched through his window as they descended toward the surface. If he was impressed by the size and power of the Zephyrian civilization, he didn't show it. He just observed everything with those sharp, clear eyes. "Tomorrow you will meet the High Council," Vexithara told him. "They will decide what to do with you and your species." "I understand," Marcus said. "You should be honored. Few primitives get to see the center of galactic power." Marcus nodded but said nothing more. That night, as he prepared for sleep in his guarded quarters, Marcus looked out at the lights of the great city below. Tomorrow would bring the real test. Everything up to now had been preparation. Soon the Zephyrian Empire would learn what it really meant to threaten humanity. But tonight an old soldier rested and waited for the war to begin. The council chamber was built to make visitors feel small and powerless. The massive dome stretched high above, covered with images of the 12 species that ruled the Zephyrian Empire. Each race had fought and won their place at the table of power. Now they sat in judgment of lesser beings. Marcus Chen walked into the chamber between 4 guards. His simple gray uniform looked shabby compared to the rich robes and gleaming armor of the council members. The floor was made of polished stone that reflected the lights above, making it seem like he was walking on stars. 12 great chairs formed a circle in the center of the room. Each chair was designed for a different species. Some were tall and narrow, others wide and low. One looked more like a tank filled with strange liquid. The beings that sat in these chairs represented the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. High Counselor Thysamora spoke first. She was the leader of the Serpentine race with scales that changed color based on her mood. Right now they showed amusement and contempt. "So this is a human," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "How disappointing. I expected something more impressive." The other council members laughed. Counselor Grexton, a being that looked like a walking tree made of metal, leaned forward in his chair. "Look how small it is," he said. "And so old. Do all humans age this badly? Their whole species is barely past childhood," added Counselor Zalthek, whose species had tentacles instead of arms. "They only discovered faster-than-light travel a few hundred years ago. We were building star empires when they were still living in caves." Marcus stood in the center of the circle, his hands behind his back. He said nothing, just listened as the most powerful beings in the galaxy made jokes about his appearance and his species. Thysamora raised one clawed hand for silence. "Human, do you know where you are?" "The High Council chamber on Zephyros Prime," Marcus replied calmly. "Do you understand what that means?" "You're the leaders of the Zephyrian Empire." "We are the masters of this galaxy," Thysamora corrected. "We rule over thousands of worlds and billions of creatures. Our fleets can destroy entire star systems. Our technology is beyond your understanding." Marcus nodded. "I'm sure it is." This simple response seemed to anger some of the council members. They expected fear, begging, or at least some sign that he understood how powerless he was. Counselor Betcree, who looked like a giant insect with crystal wings, clicked his mandibles in irritation. "Does this creature not understand the situation? We could destroy his entire species with a single command." "Perhaps his brain is too primitive," suggested Counselor Nalvek, whose species was made of living energy inside mechanical bodies. "These carbon-based life forms have such limited intelligence." Thysamora slithered down from her chair and moved closer to Marcus. She was twice as tall as him, and her scales now showed bright red patterns of anger. Your species has been expanding into space that belongs to us, she said. You have built colonies on worlds that we could use. You have ignored our warnings to stay in your own systems. I wasn't aware of any warnings, Marcus said. Ignorance is not an excuse. Thysamora's voice echoed through the chamber. The Zephyrian Empire has claimed this entire sector of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. That's before humans had space travel, Marcus pointed out. Exactly. Which proves you have no right to be here. The Council spent the next hour listing humanity's crimes. They had built settlements on 12 worlds that the Empire wanted. They had traded with species that the Empire considered their property. They had explored star systems without asking permission. Councillor Drexmar, whose people looked like living rocks, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. The solution is simple. Humanity must become a vassal state of the Empire. You will pay tribute, follow our laws, and serve our interests. Your military will be disbanded, added Grexton. Your ships will be scrapped. Your colonies will be placed under our direct control. Any resistance will be met with complete destruction, Thysamora finished. We have done this to dozens of species before you. It's nothing personal, just business. The council members seemed to enjoy explaining how powerless humanity was. They showed holographic displays of their military might. Thousands of warships, each one larger than anything humans had built. Weapons that could crack planets. Technology that seemed like magic. Your largest ship is what, 2 kilometers long? Laughed Councillor Zaltek. Our smallest battle cruiser is 5 kilometers. Our flagship is over 20. Your weapons use chemical explosives and simple energy beams, said Nalvek. We have weapons that can destroy matter at the atomic level. Your computers are still mechanical, added Betkri. We use living crystal networks that think faster than your entire population combined. Marcus listened to all of this without changing expression. When they finished, Thysamora returned to her chair and looked down at him. Well, human, what do you say to our generous offer? You're giving us a choice? Marcus asked. Of course not. We're telling you what will happen. The only question is whether your species will accept this peacefully, or if we'll have to destroy a few of your worlds first. You seem very confident, Marcus observed. This comment made several council members laugh. Confident? Thysamora's scales showed bright patterns of amusement. We're not confident, we're certain. We have conquered every species we've ever fought. We have never lost a war. Your species has existed for what, 200,000 years? Asked Grexton. We have been spacefaring for over 10 million years. The experience gap is so large it's almost funny. Besides, added Drexmar, what could humans possibly do to threaten us? You fight each other with primitive weapons. You've never faced a real enemy. Your greatest war was fought with metal projectiles and chemical explosives, said Zaltek. We were using quantum disruptors when your sun was still forming. Marcus stood quietly through all their boasting. When they finished, he took a small step forward. May I ask a question? He said politely. Thysamora was so amused by his politeness that she decided to allow it. What is it, old human? How many wars has the Empire fought in the last 1,000 years? The question seemed to confuse the council members. They looked at each other uncertainly. What kind of question is that? Thysamora demanded. A simple one. How many times have you actually had to fight for what you wanted? We don't need to fight, Petikri said with pride. Our reputation is enough. Species surrender when they see our power. So you haven't actually fought a war in a long time, Marcus said. Why would we need to? Nalvik asked. No one is stupid enough to challenge us. Marcus nodded slowly as if he was learning something interesting. I see. The way he said it made some of the council members uncomfortable, though they couldn't say why. There was something in his tone, something that suggested he was drawing conclusions they wouldn't like. Enough questions, Thysamora snapped. You will return to your people and deliver our demands. You have 30 standard days to begin compliance. After that, we start destroying your colonies. And if we refuse? Marcus asked. The entire council erupted in laughter. The idea that humanity might actually resist the mighty Zephyrian Empire was so ridiculous they couldn't contain themselves. Refuse? Thysamora could barely speak through her amusement. You can't refuse. You're primitives. You're children playing with toys. Marcus waited for the laughter to die down. When the chamber was quiet again, he spoke in the same calm, measured tone he had used throughout the meeting. You want war, he said simply. We will give you war. The laughter in the council chamber died away slowly. Some members were still chuckling at what they thought was a joke. Others had stopped laughing when they heard the tone in Marcus Chen's voice. It wasn't the voice of someone making threats. It was the voice of someone stating facts. High Counselor Thesimora's scales shifted from bright amusement to darker colors of confusion and mild concern. "Did you just threaten the Zephyrian Empire, human?" Marcus shook his head. "No. You asked what would happen if you declared war on humanity. I told you what we would do." "What you would do?" Counselor Grexton's metal bark creaked as he leaned forward. "You would die. That's what you would do." "Perhaps," Marcus said, "but not quietly." The old human took a step forward, moving to the exact center of the circle of chairs. His posture was still relaxed, his hands still behind his back, but something had changed in the way he carried himself. "Let me tell you about my species," Marcus said. "Let me tell you what you're really threatening to fight." "We know all about humans," Counselor Petcree clicked dismissively. "Primitive, short-lived, technologically inferior." "You know facts," Marcus replied. "You don't know us." He began to walk slowly around the circle, looking up at each council member as he spoke. His voice was calm and steady, like a teacher giving a lesson. "Humans have been fighting wars for our entire existence, not just small conflicts or border disputes. Total wars, wars where the survival of entire nations was at stake. All primitive species fight among themselves," said Counselor Nalvek. "It's a sign of their lack of development." "You're right," Marcus agreed. "But let me be more specific. In one period of just 30 years, humans fought 2 global wars. The second one killed over 60 million people. This number got the Council's attention. Even for spacefaring civilizations, 60 million was a significant loss of life. We fought those wars with chemical explosives, metal projectiles, and primitive aircraft," Marcus continued. "We hadn't even reached our own moon yet, but we turned warfare into an art form." Thesimora's scales were now showing orange patterns of unease. "Ancient history. Your species has surely evolved beyond such savagery." Marcus smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a pleasant smile. "Oh, we've evolved. We've gotten much better at it." He stopped walking and faced Thesimora directly. "Do you know what happened when humans finally achieved peace on our homeworld?" "You developed space travel," Counselor Zalthek said uncertainly. "We did. And the first thing we did was fight a war on Mars, then Venus, then the asteroid colonies, then between Earth and the outer planets. Peace, it turns out, makes humans very uncomfortable." Marcus resumed his slow circle around the council chairs. "Every single human colony was founded by people who were running from a war, fighting a war or preparing for a war. We've never known true peace." "This is all very interesting," Drexmar rumbled. "But what does ancient human history have to do with fighting the Empire?" "Everything," Marcus replied. "Because while you've been ruling a peaceful empire for thousands of years, humans have been perfecting the art of warfare against opponents who think exactly like we do." The council members were beginning to look uncomfortable. Several were shifting in their chairs or making nervous gestures with their limbs. "We've fought wars in space, on planets, in asteroid fields, and inside space stations," Marcus continued. "We've fought wars over resources, territory, ideology, and sometimes just because we were bored." "But you've never fought anyone with our technology," Counselor Petcree protested. "True," Marcus admitted, "but you've never fought anyone with our experience." He stopped walking again, this time in front of Counselor Grexton. "When was the last time the Empire fought an enemy that could actually hurt you?" Grexton's metal features showed no expression, but his voice was less certain than before. "We haven't needed to. Our power prevents conflicts." "Exactly. You've forgotten how to fight. We never learned how to stop." Marcus moved to the center of the circle again. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of years of military command. "You want to know what humans do when we're outgunned and outnumbered? We adapt, we innovate. We find ways to turn our weaknesses into strengths. In our first interplanetary war, Earth's fleet was completely outmatched by the Mars colonial navy. Mars had better ships, better weapons, better training. Earth won by using tactics that no one had ever seen before." "What tactics?" Thesimora asked despite herself. "We stopped fighting their ships and started fighting their supply lines. We stopped attacking their strengths and started attacking their assumptions. We made them fight our kind of war instead of their kind of war." The chamber was very quiet now. The council members were listening carefully to every word. "The Mars War lasted 3 years," Marcus continued. "By the end, both sides had developed entirely new forms of warfare. weapons and strategies that had never existed before, created out of pure necessity. That was just one war. We've fought dozens since then. Each one taught us something new about how to kill each other more efficiently. Counselor Nalvek's energy form flickered nervously. Are you trying to frighten us with stories of human violence? I'm trying to educate you, Marcus replied. You're about to fight a species that has turned warfare into our primary cultural achievement. We don't just have armies and fleets. We have an entire civilization built around the idea that conflict is inevitable and victory is the only acceptable outcome. But surely your species wants peace, Zaltek said hopefully. All intelligent life seeks harmony. Marcus shook his head. Humans don't want peace. We want victory. And when we can't find enemies to fight, we fight each other. The old soldier's eyes had grown hard and cold. When he spoke again, there was no emotion in his voice at all. Right now as we speak, there are human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. Each one was settled by people who left Earth because they wanted to build something new, something better. They're miners, farmers, scientists, and engineers. They're also all veterans. This statement hit the council like a physical blow. Several members made sounds of alarm or disbelief. Every human colony ship carries military advisors, Marcus explained. Every colonial governor is a retired military officer. Every settlement has weapons stockpiles and defense plans. We learned long ago that frontier life is dangerous, and dangerous places require dangerous people. You're saying your entire species is militarized? Thysamora's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm saying we're prepared. Marcus clasped his hands behind his back again, returning to his original stance. But now the council could see what they had missed before. This wasn't the posture of a defeated prisoner. It was the stance of a soldier at attention. You've ruled your empire for thousands of years through overwhelming force and technological superiority, Marcus said. That works very well against species that fight the way you expect them to fight. But humans don't fight fair. We fight to win. He looked around the circle one more time, meeting the eyes of each council member. You asked what humans would do if you declared war on us. I'll tell you exactly what we'll do. We'll study your tactics until we understand them better than you do. We'll find the flaws in your strategies and exploit them. We'll turn your own strengths against you. We'll fight you in ways you've never imagined, using weapons you didn't know were possible, with strategies that violate everything you think you know about warfare. And we'll keep fighting until either you're dead or we are. The chamber was absolutely silent. The most powerful beings in the galaxy sat frozen in their chairs, staring at an old human who had just explained why their empire might not be as safe as they thought. Finally, Thysamora found her voice. You're bluffing. One species cannot threaten an empire. Marcus looked at her with those sharp, clear eyes that had seen too many battles. You want war, he repeated quietly. We will give you war. The silence in the council chamber stretched on for long moments. High Counselor Thysamora's scales showed deep purple patterns of uncertainty, mixed with growing anger. She had expected this meeting to be a simple formality. Intimidate the primitive human, deliver the Empire's demands, and send him back to his people to arrange their surrender. Instead, she found herself listening to threats from an old man who seemed genuinely unconcerned about the most powerful military force in the galaxy. You speak of war as if you have choices, she finally said, her voice sharp with frustration. You have no fleets capable of threatening us. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Your entire military couldn't defeat a single one of our battle groups. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. You're probably right about our technology and our numbers, but you're making the same mistake everyone makes when they look at humanity. What mistake? Counselor Grexton demanded. You're assuming we fight with what you can see. Marcus reached into his uniform pocket and pulled out a small device. It looked like nothing more than a simple communication unit, the kind that might be found on any space traveler's equipment. May I? He asked politely. Thysamora was so confused by his request that she nodded without thinking. Marcus activated the device. A holographic display appeared in the air above it, showing what looked like a tactical readout. The council members leaned forward to examine it, expecting to see primitive human star charts or communication logs. What they saw instead made their blood run cold. The display showed detailed intelligence reports on Zephyrian military installations, fleet positions, ship specifications, defensive capabilities, command structures, supply routes. all laid out with frightening precision and accuracy. How? Counselor Nalvek's energy form flickered wildly. How do you have this information? The same way we've had it for the past 3 years, Marcus replied calmly. We've been watching you. He touched the device again and the display changed. Now it showed real-time tracking data for Zephyrian ships across dozens of star systems. Not just their positions, but their courses, speeds, and estimated destinations. This is impossible, Counselor Betcree clicked frantically. Our communications are encrypted. Our ship movements are classified. Our bases are hidden. Hidden from whom? Marcus asked. From species that use your kind of technology, yes. But we don't use your kind of technology. The display changed again. This time it showed what appeared to be empty space near a major Zephyrian naval base. But as Marcus adjusted the controls, shapes began to appear. Human ships, dozens of them, sitting invisible just outside the Empire's defensive perimeter. Stealth technology, Counselor Zalthek whispered. Not stealth, Marcus corrected. Deception. Your sensors look for energy signatures, metal compositions, and drive emissions that match known ship designs. Our ships don't match any known designs. Taisamora's scales were now showing rapid patterns of alarm and disbelief. You're saying you've had ships spying on us for years? Not spying, preparing. Marcus walked closer to her chair, still holding the device. You want to know what humans do when we think a war might be coming? We get ready for it. The holographic display shifted to show the Zephyrian homeworld itself. Tactical overlays marked military installations, government buildings, communication centers, and power plants. But more disturbing were the indicators showing human assets already in position. You have people on our worlds, Drexmar said. His rocky voice cracked with shock. Traders, diplomats, tourists, researchers, Marcus listed. Amazing how many humans have found reasons to visit Zephyrian space over the past few years, and how hospitable you've been to visitors from such a primitive species. The truth was beginning to dawn on the council members. The old human standing before them wasn't a lucky captive or a lost explorer. He was exactly where he was supposed to be. You're a spy, Taisamora accused. I'm a soldier, Marcus corrected. Retired Admiral Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Fleet, former commander of the Outer Colonies War College. Currently serving as special military advisor to the Human Colonial Council. He touched the device once more, and the display showed his military record. Battle commendations, strategic victories, innovations in space combat doctrine, a career spanning nearly 50 years of human warfare. My ship didn't have engine problems, Marcus continued conversationally. I was completing a reconnaissance mission when your patrol found me. Actually, when I allowed your patrol to find me. This is all fabricated, Counselor Betcree protested, but his voice lacked conviction. Humans don't have this capability. You keep saying that, Marcus observed, but the evidence suggests otherwise. He walked back to the center of the circle, manipulating the holographic controls as he moved. The display now showed a comprehensive overview of Zephyrian space, with human positions marked throughout the Empire. For 3 years we've been mapping your territory, studying your tactics, identifying your weaknesses. We've analyzed your political structure, your economic dependencies, your military doctrine, and your cultural assumptions. Why? Taisamora demanded. We made no aggressive moves against humanity. No, Marcus agreed. But you made it clear that you considered us subjects, not equals. The Empire doesn't negotiate with primitives. It gives orders. The display changed to show communications intercepts. Zephyrian, military and political leaders discussing the human problem, and various solutions ranging from economic pressure to outright conquest. We've been listening to your debates about what to do with us, Marcus said. Some of you wanted to ignore us until we became inconvenient. Others wanted to subjugate us immediately. None of you wanted to treat us as equals, so we decided to show you why that was a mistake. Counselor Nalvek's energy form was pulsing rapidly with stress. Even if you have intelligence and some hidden ships, you cannot threaten the entire Empire. Our fleet numbers in the thousands. True, Marcus acknowledged. But wars aren't won by who has the most ships. They're won by who uses their ships more effectively. The holographic display shifted to show battle simulations. Human ships engaging Zephyrian forces using tactics that seemed impossible. Ships that fought like fighter craft despite being frigate-sized. Weapons that behaved unlike anything in the Empire's experience. strategies that violated basic military doctrine. These are theoretical models, Grexton said, though he sounded less certain than before. Based on 3 years of studying how your forces actually fight, Marcus replied. Not how they're supposed to fight according to doctrine, but how they really respond in crisis situations. We've run thousands of simulations, tested our theories against captured Zephyrian equipment, interviewed defectors and refugees from species you've conquered. What defectors? Thysamora demanded sharply. Marcus smiled that cold, unpleasant smile again. Did you think every species you've subjugated was happy about it? Amazing how willing some people are to share information about their conquerors. The display showed technical specifications for Zephyrian weapons and defensive systems, along with detailed analyses of their weaknesses and potential countermeasures. Your plasma cannons are devastating against conventional armor, Marcus noted, but they're designed to fight ships that try to absorb the damage. Our ships are designed to avoid it entirely. Your shields can stop any known projectile or energy beam, but they're useless against weapons that phase shift through them. Your tactical computers can predict any conventional battle strategy, but they can't predict strategies that have never been used before. The council members were staring at the display in growing horror. Everything they thought they knew about their military superiority was being systematically dismantled by an old human with a simple device. This is all very impressive, Thysamora said, trying to regain control of the situation. But you're still just one species against an empire. Even if you could win some battles, you couldn't win a war. Marcus looked at her with those sharp, experienced eyes. You're still thinking like an empire. Big fleets, major battles, territorial conquest. We're not going to fight your kind of war. The display changed one final time, showing something that made every council member freeze in terror. It was a comprehensive strike plan against the Zephyrian Empire's infrastructure. Not military targets, but the economic and logistical systems that kept the empire functioning. Communications hubs, power generation facilities, transportation networks, food distribution systems, medical supply chains. Marcus pointed to each target category as he spoke. Your empire is efficient because it's centralized. That makes it powerful. It also makes it fragile. We're not going to try to conquer your territory. We're going to make it unconquerable. The old soldier looked around the circle of alien leaders one more time. You want war, he said quietly. We will give you war, but it won't be the war you expect. The holographic display faded, leaving the council chamber in tense silence. Marcus Chen stood in the center of the circle, his small communication device still in his hand, while 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy stared at him with expressions ranging from disbelief to outright terror. High Counselor Thysamora was the first to recover her voice, though her scales continued to show rapid patterns of alarm. You're bluffing, she said, but the words lacked conviction. This is all elaborate fiction designed to make us negotiate instead of simply taking what we want. Marcus looked at her with the patience of a teacher explaining something to a slow student. You still don't understand. I'm not here to negotiate. He raised the device again, but this time instead of displaying tactical information, it began transmitting. A simple signal, just a few electronic pulses, barely noticeable except to those who were listening for it. What did you just do? Counselor Nalvek demanded, his energy form flickering with panic. I told my people that the Empire has made its choice, Marcus replied calmly. Before any of the council members could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the building. Emergency lights flashed as automated systems detected incoming threats. The chamber's communication system crackled to life with frantic reports from across Zephyrian space. Fleet Command to High Council, came the voice of Admiral Kexathari. We have multiple contacts appearing throughout the Empire. Ships of unknown design emerging from stealth positions. How many ships? Thysamora demanded, unknown. They're appearing faster than we can count them. Current estimate is over 300 vessels, but the number keeps growing. Counselor Grexton's metal features showed confusion and anger. 300 ships cannot threaten the Empire. Admiral, Thysamora called through the communicator. What is their disposition? Are they advancing on our installations? Negative, High Counselor. They're maintaining position just outside weapons range, but they're jamming our communications and sensor networks across 17 sectors. Marcus watched the Council's growing panic with professional interest. The first rule of warfare is to control the battlefield. You can't fight effectively if you can't see what's happening. More reports flooded in through the communication system. Human ships had appeared near every major Zephyrian military installation, industrial center, and government facility. They weren't attacking, but their presence was having an immediate effect on Imperial operations. This is impossible. Counselor Betcree clicked frantically. Our intelligence networks would have detected a force this size. Your intelligence networks were looking for a conventional fleet, Marcus explained. Ships traveling together, using standard routes, following normal procedures. We didn't build a fleet. We built individual ships and scattered them across the galaxy over 3 years. The communication system crackled again. High Council, this is Governor Zelmoth on Kepler Station. Unknown vessels have disabled our orbital defense platforms. No weapons fired. Some kind of electronic warfare. Our systems are completely offline. Station Alpha 7 reporting massive power failures. All defensive systems down. Mining Colony Theta is under communications blackout. Last report mentioned human ships in the asteroid belt. The reports kept coming. Across the Empire, critical systems were failing simultaneously. Not from direct attack, but from sophisticated sabotage that seemed to target every vulnerability in Zephyrian infrastructure. You have people inside our facilities, Thessamora said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maintenance workers? Technicians, computer specialists, Marcus confirmed. Amazing how many job openings there are in a galaxy-spanning empire, and how willing you were to hire skilled workers from a primitive species that worked for lower wages. Counselor Drexamar's rocky voice rumbled with rage. You infiltrated our entire civilization. We offered our services, Marcus corrected. You accepted them. Did you really think humans would spend 3 years in your territory without learning how everything worked? The tactical situation was becoming clear to the council members. The Empire's military was powerful, but it depended on complex support systems. Communications networks, supply chains, maintenance facilities, computer systems all compromised simultaneously. Admiral Kexathari, Thessamora called desperately. Status of the main battle fleet? We're trying to establish communications now, High Counselor. Primary Fleet Command is experiencing system failures. Backup systems are also failing. How many of our ships are still operational? There was a long pause before the Admiral responded. We're not sure. Most of our fleet coordination networks are down. Individual ships are reporting various levels of mechanical problems. Marcus nodded approvingly. Your ships are very sophisticated. Complex computer systems, automated maintenance, integrated network controls, very efficient when everything works properly. What did you do? Nalvek demanded. We introduced small modifications to your systems, tiny changes that wouldn't be noticed during normal operations, but would cascade into major failures when activated simultaneously. You're talking about sabotage on an impossible scale. Grexton protested. We're talking about 3 years of preparation by a species that specializes in warfare. Marcus replied. Every human who worked on Zephyrian technology had specific instructions. Every maintenance routine included subtle modifications. Every software update carried hidden code. The communication system brought more bad news. Transportation networks were failing across multiple worlds. Communication relays were going offline in sequence. Even basic services like power and water distribution were experiencing widespread problems. This isn't warfare, Thessamora said, her scales showing deep red patterns of fury. This is terrorism. This is strategy, Marcus corrected. We're not trying to kill your people or destroy your worlds. We're demonstrating how dependent your civilization is on systems that we now control. Counselor Zalthek's tentacles writhed with agitation. What do you want? What are your demands? Marcus looked surprised by the question. I don't have demands. I have orders. He activated his communication device again, and this time the holographic display showed real-time tactical information from across the Empire. Human ships were moving into attack positions near critical targets. The carefully coordinated chaos was entering its next phase. My orders are to deliver a message to the Zephyrian Empire, Marcus said formally. That message is, humanity rejects your authority. We will not become your vassals. We will not surrender our colonies. We will not accept your dominion. And if you persist in trying to force these things upon us, we will dismantle your empire piece by piece until you no longer have the capability to threaten anyone. The council members were staring at the tactical display in horror. The Empire's vast military machine was being systematically paralyzed by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. "You can't maintain this," Thyssen said desperately. "Even if you've damaged our systems, we can rebuild. We can adapt. Our resources are still vastly superior to yours." "True," Marcus agreed. "But you're still thinking in terms of traditional warfare." "Rebuild what? Adapt to what?" "We're not fighting your military. We're fighting your society." The display shifted to show economic data. Trade routes disrupted. Manufacturing centers offline, financial networks compromised. The Empire's economy was grinding to a halt. "Your member species depend on Imperial infrastructure for everything, from food distribution to medical supplies," Marcus explained. "How long do you think they'll remain loyal when those systems stop working?" As if to emphasize his point, new reports began coming in from across the Empire. Planetary governors requesting emergency assistance. Colonial administrators reporting civil unrest as essential services failed. Member species governments demanding explanations for the crisis. "Some of your subject peoples have been waiting centuries for an opportunity like this," Marcus observed. "Amazing how quickly political situations can change when the central authority shows weakness." Councillor Pettigrew made a sound of desperation. "What would it take to stop this? What do you want us to do?" Marcus looked at him with those sharp, cold eyes. "Learn. Learn what? Learn that humanity is not primitive. Learn that we are not subjects. Learn that we are not afraid of you." He deactivated the holographic display and placed the communication device back in his pocket. "Learn that when you threaten a species that has spent its entire existence perfecting the art of warfare, you get exactly what you asked for." The alarms were still sounding throughout the building. The reports of system failures were still coming in from across the Empire. The most powerful civilization in the galaxy was discovering what it meant to face an enemy that didn't fight by the rules. Marcus clasped his hands behind his back again, returning to his original military posture. "I am Admiral Marcus Chen, representing the Human Colonial Council. I was sent here to deliver a declaration of war. That declaration has been delivered. You may consider me a prisoner if it makes you feel better, but the war has already begun." Thyssen scales showed the deep black patterns of defeat. Around the circle, the other council members sat in stunned silence as their empire crumbled in real time. "How long?" she asked quietly. "How long what? How long will this continue?"